Hi, I'm Luke.
And I'm Cameron.
And this is Up to Date.
We've got some interesting topics for you today. The first of which is Facebook is set to acquire WhatsApp. The world-leading social media network Facebook is set to acquire WhatsApp with a $19 billion takeover, which is huge. This will be the largest acquisition of Facebook's 10-year history and will inevitably lead to the company further dominating the mobile messaging market. But not just that, a new feature for WhatsApp, which enables free voice call services for its 450 million customers, is due for release later this year. As a result, the fearful mobile networking sector retaliated by claiming to EU regulators that Facebook's move was anti-competitive, which is a stance we've seen used recently against Uber, the carpool sharing app. However, unlike Uber, Facebook's defence team successfully managed to convince regulators that the deal was not anti-competitive and no further action was required against Facebook.
The way that Facebook are looking to dominate the market is not just dominating the social media and messaging marketing, it's actually taking away from the mobile networks that make money off of texts and calls even
definitely,
now.
Definitely.
So I think the future of telecommunications and the companies such as, O2 and all these companies, I think the thing they're going to be selling is literally just the megabytes and not the minutes and the texts, which is one of their big earners at the moment.
Yeah, I think data plans will become sort of more and more important as time goes on. And I think Facebook might actually end up kind of positioning themselves a network company, like you say, for phones, for messaging, for social networks, for everything, for all types of electronic communication.
Despite what the EU court says, this is a very uncompetitive, anti-competitive move. To literally buy up half the market is absolutely crazy.
It's a very ambitious move by Facebook. Mobile calling and mobile communication as we know it, when you can't get a signal but you can always get a Wi-Fi connection somewhere, or 3G. Sometimes 3G is more reliable than signal. I know over here I can get internet, but sometimes it says I'm in France, Belgium. We've spoke about that in previous podcasts. So yeah, if I can call through WhatsApp through my data plan and I have unlimited data, yeah, definitely I'm going to go for that.
Asphalt Overdrive, now available for download for Android and iOS. Gameloft, best known for being the creators of Backstab, which is an Assassin's Creed lookalike. Nova 2, which is a Halo lookalike. Dungeon Hunter 2, which is Diablo. And Gangster Miami Vindication, which looks very much like Grand Theft Auto Vice City. The popular mobile video game maker has released this week Asphalt Overdrive for iOS and Android, with the Windows version set to be released, but no one cares about that. Asphalt Overdrive, which was first showcased during the E3 event in June this year, is a lane-based arcade racing game where players have to complete missions in order to unlock new areas and cars.
Now, I've seen this game gradually kind of climbing up the App Store rankings, and to be honest with you, Gameloft are the kind of company who annoy me. They're not original. They don't really provide anything to the gaming industry other than cheap knockoff copies. Backstab, Nova 2, Dungeon Hunter 2, Gangstar, Miami Vindication. They're all, in my opinion, shovelware garbage. And Asphalt Overdrive, although I haven't played it yet, it's probably the same thing.
I don't know if I agree with you. Asphalt Overdrive, it didn't particularly strike me as a mirror of anything. So, stylization, the artwork stylization looks again like it's Grand Theft Auto Vice City, like the artwork for it. But I'm not really sure exactly what they're going for with it. So I guess, like you say, I guess it's supposed to be Need for Speed.
Google Currents for iOS has been replaced by the Google Play Newsstand, and all subscriptions will now be migrated to the new app. The Google Play Newsstand contains a new interface, which is a lot more like a magazine, and the app's new features include subscribing to topics, as well as blogs, RSS feeds, and publishers. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it sounds good for people like us.
Yeah,
like we have obviously there's a blog that goes up every week with this.
Yeah.
If we could be included in the newsstand.
Maybe we'll give it a go. How about we'll put this broadcast out on the Google Newsstand, and anyone that can find it and tweet to us that they found it, we'll buy you a secret app. We'll buy you a surprise app.
Adobe announces its acquisition of popular photo editing app Avery. Adobe said it will integrate Avery's SDK, which is Software Development Kit, as I looked up on Google this morning, with a software library that will enable developers to tap into Adobe's creative technologies to build mobile apps and drive new connections between mobile devices and Adobe Creative Cloud desktop application and services. Avery wrote, "We can barely contain our excitement today as we announced that Avery has been acquired by Adobe." They also added that together we will build and connect a new generation of creative applications. The company's free apps for iOS and Android will continue to be available as such after the acquisition.
Excellent. Anyone who is a big fan of Flickr or uses Flickr, like myself, will be familiar with Avery. It's great. A little bit buggy on Flickr sometimes, I'm sure you'll all agree. But it's very interesting that Adobe have taken over this company. Photoshop is the go-to program for photo editing, really. So it'll be interesting to see how Adobe adopts Avery, how it will integrate that into the software package. Maybe we can see Avery becoming a member of the Creative Cloud with upgraded features. Who knows?
We were saying earlier about Facebook, this is an anti-competitive move. It's not actually they want any of the technology from Avery. They could easily develop that. They're just buying out the market to stop them being there. And I don't know if that's maybe the best thing for them to do. I think it's a bit like if we developed a really, really basic software that photo edited, nowhere near touches how good Adobe Photoshop is, and then they bought us just because we were getting a tiny amount of the market share.
Adobe in this case have seen the potential with the number of Flickr users and how they're familiar with Avery, and maybe they're trying to tap into that. So definitely they're going in there to steal another slice of the pie, and good luck to them, because Adobe, you're wicked.
Messaging app seeks to bring voices back to phones. Ray Ozzie, Microsoft's former chief software architect, wants to bring back the emotion of the human voice to phones. That sentence actually sounds a little bit like Johnny Ive, doesn't it? I want to bring back the emotion of... A bit pretentious, but we'll carry on, see what he's got to say for himself. People are increasingly communicating through texts, emails and social media posts instead of actually talking to each other or calling each other. He says that when you see nothing but words and numbers, it becomes very mechanical and very transactional. Ozzy said in an interview that when you hear the sound of someone's voice, it really brings you closer to home. The app he's created is called Talko, up for release on Tuesday for iPhone. A version for Android is expected in the next few months, and maybe one day for Windows Phone. Maybe, no one cares. But he used to be the chief architect at Microsoft Software, so honestly. All messages can be stored for 10 days, though users can buy a subscription, expected to be about $5 to $9 a month, to permanently store messages. For the first few months, Talko will store all voice recordings for free. This never works. What's happening here is he's trying to create a voice messaging service between two people, and that already exists on your phone. It's called Voice Message. But it's just, it never works. There's been apps before where you send each other voice messages and people just don't like doing it. Do you remember Just Saying? Ricky Gervais really endorsed that for a while. It was like Twitter with actual voices. People don't like listening to themselves. We don't like listening to themselves talk. You don't like listening to yourself talk, do you?
No, I don't. Not at all. I mean, I completely agree with you here, Luke. I think the only hope this app has is that it becomes kind of gimmicky, like Snapchat, for example. So people will be sending each other stupid voice recordings, or voice recordings of them, say, I don't know, in a bizarre situation or making fun of someone or something, and sharing them, and who can be the most outrageous on Talko. It's not going to be used for people to chat with. What is the point? What is the point? A delayed chat messaging service?
As opposed to a conventional phone call, you can respond whenever's convenient for you.
It's like my answer phone then.
Yeah, very much like your answer phone that already comes pre-built into every single phone. That's a no from us, that app then.
No, sorry.
You definitely wouldn't pay $5 to $9 a month to store.
Not in a million years.
Apple refutes speculation that it will close Beats Music service. Apple acquired music streaming service as part of a $3 billion deal earlier this year. Apple have been accused of planning to shut down the service. However, Apple have dismissed this as untrue. That being said, they did not address whether or not the name, the branding, Beats, would be kept or it would actually be moved to fit in with the iTunes brand. So maybe iBeats or something like that, maybe.
I'm thinking, yeah.
I think they're really behind on the market on this, and it's really shit because they really pioneered that selling music online.
Yeah.
And they didn't do a streaming service.
Right.
And they completely fell behind. New boys like Spotify, they don't particularly come from massive companies. Nowhere near the size of Apple. Apple could have done this years ago, and I don't know why they haven't done it independently without the Beats Music app.
Let's see what happens with it.
It seems like a conflict of interest against themselves, because they're trying to sell songs on one hand, and they've been doing that for years, and it's a very successful business model, and then to tell people they could have it for a small subscription fee that doesn't anywhere near add up to the amount of revenue they get from iTunes, it's a conflict of interest on themselves. Beats Music notably does not come pre-installed on the new iPhone 6 or 6 Plus. The Apple Watch has been unveiled this month, which includes an unnamed music app with a blue play button. So maybe...
Blue Music.
Blue Music.
Yeah, that's what I think it's called. Blues. Blue Muse.
iBlue Music.
iBlue. That's quite a good one, actually. I can see Apple positioning themselves to include these kind of music subscriptions as part of maybe an iPhone package, so that when you go and you buy your new iPhone 6, you also get a subscription to Beats, and then they've got sort of more revenue being generated that way in a kind of secretive manner, because it's something you might overlook as being included in the price.
Chrome adds support for iOS 8 extensions. Google Chrome for iOS, the latest version, get ready for it, is called v37.0.2062.60. Now supports third-party app extensions for sharing and posting content to other websites. For instance, the iOS 8 users can now send web pages and links to their Read Later service Pocket via the Chrome browser and can share it on LinkedIn. Besides adding general compatibility for iOS 8, Google Chrome for iOS also includes some new stability improvements and bug fixes, details of which are not known.
Okay, now this is the highlight of today's podcast. This is the manual camera app revolution. Now, iOS 8 have unlocked some amazing features for developers, which basically is bringing the ability for third-party developers to take control of iPhone and iPad camera settings, effectively turning the devices into mini digital SLRs. ISO sensitivity, shutter speed, white balance, focus and exposure compensation can all be accessed directly via official APIs. This enables any new camera apps to benefit from the newly available features. The first camera app to hit the App Store with these features was the manual custom exposure camera app, which became a top 10 most downloaded app shortly after release and further cemented its place in the App Store as a featured app. But now, Afterlight, Pro Camera 8 and Camera Plus 6 have all adopted the manual control features following the success of the manual custom exposure camera app. How long is it until Instagram makes a move to manual settings?
It's a very big market for this, and I think this is going to be a really big thing in the next few years as how people are going to mess around to actually have the ability to not just digitally change the image, but change it on that, I guess, the analog side of it, if there is a such thing in an iPhone. So this actually gives you a lot more post and pre-editing options than ever before, because with the with old camera apps that are on the iPhone, you could only edit the image once it had been taken with the camera. With these ones, you can actually change how the camera is going to work in order to manipulate the image before you even have the image stored, which is an absolutely fantastic thing for software developers, and I'm sure they're going to come up with a whole bunch of new stuff that's going to be really exciting for us to take selfies with.
Definitely. Everyone fancies themselves as a bit of a photographer, especially iPhone users, and this actually brings them a little bit closer to real photography. They're going to have to learn about apertures, ISOs, shutter speeds, and I mean there's some other great apps out there, like the Great Photography app, for example, which has been designed for digital SLR photography, and now that's applicable with apps like Afterlight, Pro Camera 8 and Camera Plus 6, and I think it's great, definitely.
So that's a thumbs up for us then.
Thumbs up, absolutely.
Fantastic.
110%. Apple problems, iOS 8 0.1 and the hashtag Bengate hoax. YouTuber Unbox Therapy has been caught out supposedly showing a slightly bent iPhone 6 bending dramatically under the pressure of his two thumbs. Now this guy, who appears to be a bit of a moron to be honest, must either be time travelling or simply staging the video. Because the time shown on the iPhone at the start of the video is 2:26 PM. But by the end of the video, while we're being shown a bent iPhone, which is supposedly the result of the clip we've just watched, the time is 1:58 PM. Yes, that's almost half an hour before, like back in time. Obviously there's something fishy going on here.
All of this has got to be down to ultimately share prices and people trying to bring down share prices. Or it's just down to other market competitors trying to show that their phones are better by trying to take down Apple's name or whatever. But Apple have responded in a lot of ways, showing that they actually do put them through quite a lot of stress to make sure that they work properly, you know? And you were saying earlier to me that it's not just the aluminium body, it actually has a frame on the inside. What's the frame made out of?
Yeah, they have a steel frame. There's a steel frame inside these iPhones. And Apple announced that they'd only had 9 complaints 6 days after launching the iPhone. And this, if you imagine how many million iPhones have been shipped out and only 9 people complained about their iPhones being bent in this kind of way, it just shows that this whole issue is being completely blown out of proportion. It's utter garbage. Well, it's just ridiculous. He had clearly, in my opinion, he had pre-bent this iPhone, God knows how, and then thought, right, I'll bend it back now that the steel frame inside is damaged, and we'll make a video saying, oh look, I can bend an iPhone with my 2 thumbs. I know, I've noticed he's had over 3 million views.
Even in the video, he seems to be pushing an unrealistic amount of force.
An immense amount of force.
An immense amount of force with his thumbs, and he's barely bending it at all anyway.
He's shaking, isn't he? Physically shaking where he's trying so hard.
I think most people, well, most phones would snap under that kind of pressure. So I would happily say that the iPhone's probably an exception to that rule. And if it does bend, it's probably a good thing that it bends and doesn't just snap like a normal phone probably would.
Definitely.
Because he's putting a hell of a lot of pressure on it.
To top it off for poor old Apple, they've also had to pull their iOS 8 0.1 update due to a whole host of problems, which includes it disabling the Touch ID feature, network reception interruption, and even some users having their older iPhones bricked thanks to the update. And this was actually due to the same quality control manager who was overseeing the Apple Maps release, which was a complete disaster too. And I personally think he should get the sack. He is an idiot. Apple shares have dropped $12 billion following the Bengate hoax and the iOS 8 0.01 update. This is insane. This is, you know, you're talking almost 4% share drop of a huge company like Apple. People are losing millions of pounds because of hoaxes and negligence, just pure negligence. That guy should get the sack. This hoax stuff needs clearing up. But great time to buy shares in Apple.
That's all from App to Date this week. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. We are at iOS App News 24. And check out our blog that goes with this. You can check that out on 3deal.co.uk/app-2-date. Thank you for listening. See you next week. How are you supposed to pronounce it? Adobe or Adobe?
Adobe, I don't know.
I don't know.
How do you... Right, we're going to have a tweet in for this. How do you pronounce Adobe? Adobe or Adobe? Adobe Creative Cloud? Adobe Creative Cloud? We're going to go with Adobe for this.
I think I'm going to go with Adobe, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Adobe.
Yeah.